Hi everybody, so last time I introduced you to the puzzle about the two twins, the identical twin brothers Dave and Jim, and you run into somebody on the street and you're trying to figure out whether you run into Dave or whether you run into Jim, and the trick is that one of them you don't know who always lies, and another one, again you don't know which one, always tells the truth. And you want to figure out one short yes-no question, which will immediately let you know whether you're talking to Dave or to Jim. So how would you solve a puzzle like that? So one way of solving it is to look at all possible scenarios, all possible variants that can happen, and figure out what question you could ask so that in each one of the scenarios it would give you the answer that would tell you whether it's a Dave or a Jim. So here are the four possible scenarios for this particular puzzle. You could be talking to Jim, or you could be talking to Dave. Also, you could be talking to Jim, who is a liar. You could be talking to Jim, who is a truth teller. So Jim can be a liar, or Jim can be a truth teller. This gives us four possibilities. You're talking to Jim, talking to Dave, and Jim's a liar, Jim is not a liar. And you want your question to work correctly in all of those situations. Let's try some questions and see what we get. One thing that you're thinking about, why can't I just ask him, are you Jim? Here is where the liars and truth tellers part comes into play. Suppose you're talking to Jim and Jim is a liar. You're asking him, are you Jim? He's going to say no, he's a liar. Suppose you're talking to Jim and he's a truth teller. You're asking, are you Jim? He says, well, yeah, I am Jim. He tells the truth. Now you ask the question, and in spite of the fact that both times it was Jim in front of you, you got different answers. Moreover, you could get different answers if you're talking to Dave. If you're talking to Dave and Dave is telling the truth, he's saying, no, I'm not Jim. No. If you're talking to Dave and he is a liar, he says, oh yeah, I'm Jim. Again, even though both times it's Dave in front of you, sometimes you get an answer yes, sometimes you get an answer no, you cannot figure out the name. Let's try another question. You say, Aga, we need to test for people being liars. Why don't we just ask them, is 2 + 2 = 4? Let's try it. So suppose you're talking to Jim and Jim is a liar. He says, no, 2 + 2 is not equal to 4. He cannot possibly say the truth. If this is Jim and he's telling the truth, he says, well, yeah, duh, of course. 2 + 2 = 4. Why are you asking? Similarly, if Jim is a liar and Dave is a truth teller, Dave will say yes to 2 + 2 = 4. And if Dave is a liar and you're talking to Dave, he will say no. Again, in both of those cases, Jim can give you both an answer yes and an answer no, and Dave can give you both an answer yes and an answer no, even if they come in different scenarios. Actually, you did learn something else by asking this question, which probably was your point all along. If the answer was yes, you're talking to a liar, to a truth teller. And if the answer was no, then you're talking to a liar. So you did find some information, but it wasn't the information about their name. So let's try another possibility, which seems kind of more remote because you met somebody on the street and you start asking them about their brother, potentially. So you say, hello, is Dave a liar? Now, if you're talking to Jim and Jim is a liar, he'll say, yes, that's him, not me. If you're talking to Jim and Jim is a truth teller, he says, well, yeah, the liar in our family is Dave. So both times when you were talking to Jim, whether he was a liar or not, you got the answer yes. Similarly, both times if you're talking to Dave, the answer would be no, because if Dave is telling the truth, he will say no. And if Dave is lying, he'll say no. So now finally we got the question which has yes exactly when you're talking to Jim, and has an answer no exactly when you're talking to Dave. So if the answer is yes, then you know you're talking to Jim. So surprisingly, the question, is Dave a liar, is a question that lets you determine the name of the person you're talking to. But notice that if before we only found out if we're talking to a liar, this time we only found out the name. We have no idea whether we are talking to somebody who will lie in the next sentence or somebody who would tell the truth. And this is unavoidable because in order to single out one scenario out of 4, you kind of have to ask 2 questions, even if each question is yes half the time and no half the time. So if you're allowed to ask any 2 questions we looked at, for example, is Dave a liar and is 2 + 2 = 4, that will give you full information. Then you will know for sure both if you're talking to Jim or Dave, and whether you're talking to a liar, and whether Jim is a liar or Dave is a liar. Because with 2 questions you cover all 4 possibilities. Yes, 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 no, no, yes, and no, no.